Welcome back to the Mighty Fuzz podcast. I am your host, Greg Mighty Fuzz Young. If you haven't subscribed to the Mighty Fuzz podcast, we are on YouTube and Rumble at Mighty Fuzz Podcast, and we are now on Twitter at Mighty Fuzz Cast. For all my hip hop heads, this one's going to be a great one. This man has been a brother and a mentor to me. You might remember him from the '90s mixtapes. When mixtapes were like the solidifying factor for artists in New York City specifically. First Italian-American hip-hop artist assigned to a major label, a creator, writer, producer, my brother from another, Genovese. Welcome, Genovese.
Oz, what up, brother? What up?
Good. It's good to have you, man. I've been meaning to reach out to you, and I want to just say you were the first one to reach out to me when I went down to Carolina. You were like, yo, what are you doing? I'm down here to help with the hurricane relief. We just were on the opposite sides of North Carolina, but that goes a long way with me. I didn't forget that, and I didn't tell you that, but I didn't forget that, brother. It speaks volumes of your character.
No, and what you did is phenomenal. I was like, wow. You talk it. It's different. People talk about things, but when you actually do it and you travel out of your elements, down all the way down south to do something good for the people. I mean, I was proud of you, bro. We didn't get up, we didn't link. Like I said, it's on the other side. A lot of stuff was going on, but that was huge, bro. I'm really, really good to see you. Put your work in the right places like that.
I appreciate you, bro. Are you familiar with Frank County? I know there's a very small town that we ended up working with. Are you familiar with Frank County?
No, but I know there. I used to go visit with the family up there. We go like snowboarding and it's beautiful in the fall, like, those Blue Ridge Mountains and up that way. So it's a beautiful area. It was terrible what happened, but I know you put that work in, man. And that was, I know it's gratifying too for you to probably do that as well.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And listen, I just feel like we have to, right? We're all Americans. We love this country. We kind of lost that through the years. And I think, we got to lead by, we can't just point fingers. Hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. We all got to lead by example. And we've always been like, brother, I've had great mentors like you, Cody, so many people that are stand-up men. So, I've always been in good hands. So I think it reflects that. And honestly, bro, can I be straight with you? Even though I took a turn in my life with this freedom movement, I see a reflection to hip hop so much. Like, if you really think about it, like, hip hop raised us to question government. Hip hop raised us to question the norms. It was our way out through creativity. We had a lot of alpha males going on in hip hop, you included. And it's just, I feel like we were ready for this time period. We were groomed for this time period to stand as men.
There was a lot of artists that talked about shit back then, and people didn't really people weren't on it. The RZA, he spoke about a lot of stuff. Prodigy, Secret Society, trying to keep the eye on me. There's a lot of things that a lot of these artists were talking about that people are now they come out in videos and people are posting it, but that's like 30 years ago. But so there's a lot of stuff in hip hop that I think people were aware of that the masses weren't. Which I don't think people talk about that enough either.
100%. Prodigy, Killer Army,
Yep.
What is it? Silent Weapons and Quiet Wars. That was from Bill Cooper. You see how they continue to connect, bro. I don't really come to it like when I make this connection, right? I don't make the connection like some right-wing stuff. I make it like some freedom stuff, right? Freedom is it transcends blue or red, and I can even make an argument both parties don't care about any of us, right? But when we had like hip hop leaders that were speaking about this and putting the seeds. Onyx talking about the New World Order. Even, bro, you know what song has really been I've been playing a lot? It's what's the brother's name? Vinny Paz with the Snow Goons. Vinny Paz, Snow Goons, and Block McCloud. They made a record like 10 years ago, which was like a conspiracy anthem. And I'm listening to the words and I'm like, wow. This was made 10, 15, maybe even 15 years ago. Shout out to the Snow Goons. And it's like we've been hearing this through hip hop for years, brother, no?
Very, very true. Yeah, and shout out to the Snow Goons. I did a joint with Styles maybe about 10 years ago, and they did a remix for it, and it was crazy. Those are some talented brothers, Snow Goons. Yeah, bro, 100%. I mean, you listen to Method Man years ago, way back when they were about to blow up, and he was talking about the New World Order and how different things. I mean, it's amazing how people are on stuff. But that remember, footage. It's a different time, bro. Everything now is social media. Social media stuff people said were on these grainy videos and maybe just verses. So it's not like now where me and you can just jump on a phone and do a podcast. Where like back then you didn't have the accessibility to do anything. I always say that even with music. You could be an artist now by yourself. You don't need anyone. You got YouTube. You got what DistroKid or whatever you want to use to put your music out. Anybody could be an artist. Whereas during my time, you had to run around and someone had to actually accept you, a manager, somebody in the label, to say you're good and I'm going to work with you and I'm going to bring you to the studio. Nobody had a studio in the house. Would you have a 4-track? What are you going to do? You know what I mean? So the times are different, but all that stuff is, the internet's amazing for that we could find this footage and find old stuff that we could talk about, and it pertains to now.
100%. Vise, I want to start this off with some controversial questions, and you said you're a good sport. You said you'll answer anything, and I appreciate you being a stand-up man. I feel like there's a question that is needed specifically for my Italian American hip hop fans, the people that were listening to hip hop in the 90s. And there's 3 mysteries in hip hop. The first one, we want to know if Tupac's alive still, right? Is Tupac still alive? Yeah, no, that's one of the mysteries. The second one is the Detox. What happened to the Detox album, right? And
True.
the third one is, Vise, will there ever be a Genovese Jojo Pellegrino collaboration? And how come there wasn't? And could there be in the future?
It's a great question. JoJo's a talented kid. At the end of the day, when we were coming up together, I think that there was like some sort of friction, or people would say, what's up with you and Joe? But I never met JoJo until later on. So it's like, the way the world is. People always want to put things together, especially if there's 2 of the same artists doing the same thing from the same culture, same type of neighborhood. So yeah, I would love to work with JoJo. I met him years later when we were doing business with the same people, and he's a good dude, talented kid. Always open to work with talented brothers. That's the bottom line. You know me, I never hated on anybody. I don't care about race. I don't care who you're with. If you're nice, you're nice. Bars speak farther than your color or your background for me. I don't really care about that shit. When I came up, there was no white rapper stuff. There was none of that shit. White rapper came from the media, and when the Eminem craze, they created a white rapper craze. But when I came up, I was just nice. I don't think anybody looked at me. And if they did, they were like, oh shit, he's white, he's Italian. But you remember, back then, it wasn't a white rapper thing. It was just like, you had talent, you were nice. Your third base, they were white kids, but they were rapping, and there was no white rapper craze. It was just you were nice. So I think, the media made that into a whole thing. But JoJo's nice. I would always spit balls with JoJo any day.
Look at that, man. Look at that. So all my hip hop heads, specifically my Italian Americans, it's on the table, man. I had the pleasure of working with you. I had the pleasure of working with JoJo. Me and JoJo used to spend hours on the phone talking about doing pop records and stuff like that, bro, hours. And he had the utmost respect for you back then. He would always say, and it's just, I feel like that everybody who's watching this, Italian American, people that loved hip hop, I know they all said word when I asked that question, because it's like, it's one of those things. You guys were so nice. You like coming out of Yonkers, him coming out of Staten Island at a time when like, not now, but like JoJo's coming out when Wu-Tang's coming out. Wu-Tang's coming out with albums and Triumph and all that stuff. JoJo's in the mix. You're coming out when the Lox is coming out. I mean, this is a hard time to be trying to. So it just makes sense, and I would love to see it. I'm sure the fans would love to see it, and I'm glad it's on the table. And if I had the opportunity, I'll even produce the record, man. I would love to produce.
Oh, there you go. It's done.
It's done. Let's go. Speaking of Yonkers, Vise, you grew up in Yonkers. You grew up around some of the members of the Lox. You want to get into that backstory, how that all came about, and how music, just growing up with these guys, and then how music came about in when you were a child?
Yeah, I mean, I met Styles when we were in like junior high, and obviously none of us were into music yet. We were 13, whatever. And then years later, I had friends that went to the same high school as Kiss and Chic and Styles. So, running into them and, oh, what up? And now, we're kind of doing into the music. I mean, I'm in high school, so I was doing it, but nobody really knew me outside of like friends in high school and all that. But um, Styles was with the Locks at that point. Well, they were the Bomb Squad originally. And then that was Jay and Sheik with the Bomb Squad. And then they became the Warlocks. And as they were growing, Styles was part of that group. You know, he wasn't part of the actual group, but he was, he was like with them, featuring on stuff. And then Styles got locked up. And when Styles came home, basically they had to deal with Puff. So I was living with Styles, during that time when they were like getting with Puff and starting to work and growing, just basically they weren't on anything really yet. If you remember back then, the Locks was signed, but they only had like You'll See, the joint with
Yep.
Big. And Puff kind of had them, to where he didn't want to let them out. But that's when kind of like Die Hard Records came, where, it was an independent label. The dude who owned Die Hard Records, his father started pay-per-view, and they had tons of money. And me and Casino and Richie Thumbs were all working with them. And that's where a lot of the music that you remember from the mixtapes came from, like Genovese's Theses, Well, Republic, like the Dominicans, and all those joints really came from Die Hard Records. So that when that music hit Clue tapes, that took the Locks to a different level on the street side. Obviously, they were with Puff and they were about to blow, but it definitely enhanced their street value on the mixtapes every day. But yeah, living with Styles. Listen, living as a roommate with Styles in '96 in those times was incredible, because you're living with someone who's an ill lyricist. Jadakiss lived down the street and he would come by. Mace was introduced into Rough Riders and he would come by the crib, and you had all this talent where you're like, how could you not be nice? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you were pushed to the utmost limits of talent around you. So Styles would wake me up 7:30 in the morning, like, yo, listen to this verse. Blah, blah, blah. Listen, and it's like you're hearing these tracks that you never heard before, because they're getting beats from insane producers, and then you're just around this talent. It was a magical time, bro. It was really a magical time. It brought my level of talent to a whole nother level, because I had no choice. I was either had to quit or I had to get really nice. And that's where my mind was at that time.
Gladiator school. So yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
That's kind of what I was saying with the where you were coming out of and stuff. And then it's like you said. I mean, I'm sure just being around these guys, you had to work on your pen. These. So let's backtrack a little bit. So this mixtape, when these records like Well, and Thesis, bro, I'm like 13, cutting school because I'm literally being thrown out of like IS schools. I'm buying these mixtapes at Buyhoff, which was ironically across the street from the Genovese drugstore. Buyhoff Records. I'm buying the tapes, bro. And I don't know you yet, right? I'm listening to these tapes as a fan, and I'm listening. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I gotta buy Show Me the Money 2, Show Me the Money 3. So when these records are coming out and the Locks were dominating these mixtapes, including with you, the whole crew, they're already signed to Puffy and they're trying to like leak music out through the mixtapes. Is that what's happening?
Puff didn't want the music out, but the music was so good that, what are you going to do? Clue is coming by Die Hard, come and look for us. It's a different time. As big as Clue was, we were just as big, because we were, if you look at some of the records, we were like on the first 3-4 songs of the mixtapes, right near Biggie or right near Nas. So, this is before social media. Like, if I always think back, if like social media was alive at that time, like who knows what would even happen, but we were like the hottest artist of that time, so the Locks benefited from having those songs out, even though Puff didn't want them out because he wanted to put his music, but it only benefited the Locks. It only helped Puff get these kids more known because the music was already out. But yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy time. I mean, that was a time, I think, when you're young, you're like 23 years old, and you just think it's the norm, or you just, your mind is not there yet to even understand what's going on, right? When I look back now, I'm like, I used to go to places and no one knew who I was at that point in terms of like what I look like. There's no magazines yet. There was no internet, social media pages. All you had was a Clue tape with the names on the back of the track list. That's all you
Right.
had. So
A faded piece of paper
a
as the
faded
track list.
paper
You can
from
barely see the names.
a faded
Bro.
paper from Kinko's or from like from some local, whatever. But I used to go to places and I would tell like, the places, the record spots or whatever, who I was, and they would be like, "You're not Genovese, Genovese is black. Like, who are
Right.
you?" And I would have to have my mans with me, like, "No, that's Genovese," and they were just baffled because there was nobody at that time that was rapping like me that was white. There's just what there wasn't.
Right.
Had the third base, but had video. People knew what it was. So it was just a different time for me, and it was a little strange because you're doing your thing, you're being yourself, but people just can't figure out how you're this Italian kid and you're rapping like this and like how, why, like what's your story? How do you sound like this? Where are you from? So it was a lot to tell people to explain. But I think that made the mystery of it even more cooler, because like I said, you didn't have the social media and where everybody knew you in 1 second when you post an Instagram picture or something.
The mixtapes at that time, people don't really understand, and it basically was running music. If you made it on these mixtapes, it wasn't like later when there was like a pay for play to get on and stuff. You have Tony Touch, you have DJ Clue, you got Vlad, you got Doo Wop, you got Woo Kid. I mean, these are heavy hitting DJs, and when you're on this, it's literally, if you're bubbling on any of these, the labels are going to take a look at what's going on. Almost like a scouting. The mixtapes became the scouting pool, and you got signed to Universal. How did you go from those mixtapes to Universal contacting you?
Well, you broke it down exactly right. The mixtapes were basically help the labels do their job to make it easier. Because if you made it listen, before Clue, obviously you had the doo-wops and the SNS, and those 95 lives and all that, and they had it locked. And then when Clue came and he had the freestyles with Nature and you had all those freestyles, Nori, the locks. I mean, like, when you made it on a Clue tape, and there was times I was on Show Me the Money was one of the biggest mixtapes. They say it's one of the best mixtapes of all time. And I had two joints on there. I was right there on the fourth or fifth song right next to Biggie. So like I said, at that time, did I think it was a huge deal? I thought I was like, wow, I'm on a mixtape. That's great. But I didn't look back. Who knew that, what those tapes were, right? So, but being on those tapes obviously led to endless, labels. And, I sat with everyone. I sat with, Rockefeller with Dame, my Def Jam with Irv, Mike Lynn from Aftermath at some point came in, Sony. Nas took my shit to Sony. Mace brought my stuff to Sony. Jermaine Dupri, and I could go on and on. I was everywhere, but like I said, once people knew who I was and my name was attached, there was a lot of, I don't know if it was blackballing or a lot of like problems where there was at some point that I felt like I would never get a deal, because I met Nas, and like obviously Nas was my favorite rapper growing up. Even though we're close to the same age, it was Nas, and I was always a huge Nas fan. And when I met him, I was like a little kid, I was like, oh, and I remember the bodyguard Horse, his man, he was like, yo, like push me away. He's probably like, who's this crazy kid? But Nas, I was like, yo, I'm Genovese. And Nas looked back and was like, Genovese? And he started hugging me. And I was like, yo, we talked for hours. And then like a few weeks later, he's like, yo, I want to bring your stuff up to Sony, to Donnie Ienner and Tommy Mottola. So he brought me up to Sony, 40-something floor, red rugs, orange juice, fish tanks in the wall. I'm like, oh my, like Nas brought me up. But the crazy thing was when he came out of the meeting, he told me that he brought the stuff to Donnie Ienner. He told him about me, and Donnie Ienner pulled music out of the desk. He was like, I know Genovese. He's one of the hottest artists right now. I just can't sign him. So now I was like, what do you mean you can't sign him? And he was like, I can't with his name. It's too much. I can't really explain it. But so when Nas came back and looked baffled and told me that story, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not getting a deal. Because if Nas brings me somewhere and they say they can't, like, how are you going to get a deal? That's how I was thinking. Like, the best rapper of the time is kind of saying like it's not going to work. So that kind of threw me for a loop, and I knew there was something funny at that point. But we just kept grinding, bro. After that, maybe going to every label and just sitting and being persistent, not giving up and running up on Leah Cohen or running up on anyone we could run up on. Because back in the days, you could go in the labels. You could actually walk in the label, and if you knew a name, you can go, and all of a sudden you're on the floor where all the desks and offices are. It's different. There's no security really. So we would just be on guerrilla mode and run up on people. So, we ended up meeting actually, God bless Reggie Osei was my lawyer. Later on, he was known as Combat Jack. He had a very successful podcast, a trendsetter in the game. But before that, he was a fantastic lawyer. And he was more of a friend and a real person than he was an attorney to me. He's very honest. He really wanted me to succeed. And he was the one who reached out to Dino at Universal and said, hey, you need to sign this kid. Because I think they were going to sign a white artist. And then, Reggie was like, yo, if you're going to sign a white artist, there's only one person that you need to sign. So we ended up going over there. We ended up getting a demo deal for like 4 or 5 months, spent a little money, worked on a few joints. And then in June of 99, we signed a production deal with Universal. So we actually had a little power to do what we wanted to do in terms of the music and being creative.
So you signed with Universal. What kind of a deal back in, I believe this is the mid 90s now. What are we looking at, 95?
This is 99. I was signed the same time. Yeah, same time as Nelly. My deal was 350 grand. Nelly's was about 300. Mine was actually more than Nelly's. I mean, because honestly, I had more of a buzz than Nelly at that time.
So there was Nelly about five artists got signed. That's why it's Universal signed 5 artists in the same time period. Is that why they were showcasing you guys together?
Yeah, at that time, I think Universal had Tracy Lee. They had Sticky Fingers, Rakim, DeBarge, me, Nelly, Ram Squad, some kids from Philly. They had a nice roster of artists. Like talented people, especially older artists that already were successful, some new artists. But Nelly just blew everybody out of the water. When Nelly came out,
I
think when Nelly came out, I don't think they cared about anyone else. And I understand it's business. It's like one of them hit, and whatever else, anyone else. I remember I was there the day that they had a check for Nelly. He got his first $1 million, and they called him. And they were like, yo, we got a check here for you. And he's like, yo, just mail it out. And they were like, you sure? He was like, how much is it? I think it was like 1.2 mil or something. And then they were like, he as soon as he heard the number, he paused and he goes, yo, I'm getting on a flight right now. And and I never forget that because I get it. Like, imagine somebody's this is back in the days like where it wasn't like direct deposit or how it is now. If somebody told you had $1 million check and you're I'm going to get it. Like, I'm flying in. I'm going to get it.
We're going to go see that.
We're going to go see that. But yeah, I actually did a song. He actually did a hook for my album. And when all the bullshit was going on Universal, they somehow said that they lost it. But he did a hook for my joint. And it's crazy because it's one of the only songs that I ever did that I don't have it. So it's just etched in my mind. Yeah, we did it at D&D Studios, and they somehow said that they lost everything about it. That was part of the ending of the bullshit that I went through. But yeah, Nelly's a good guy though, talented brother. And me and him were signed basically at the same time.
So all right, so you're on Universal, and like, what are the meetings like? What are they saying to you? Is it being, let's get right to it. Is it being brought up a lot that you're a white artist? Are they trying to market you like that? Are they talking to you like, what is the meeting like with Universal? What's the projection, the game plan for your career there?
Dino, who was my A&R, he was golden, bro. Because when we first signed with them, we told them, listen, the reason why we want a production deal is because we don't really need to be babied. We already did the groundwork. We already created this. Now we need the engine. So if we have Universal's engine on the work we already did and what we built, we felt that it's only could go up because I'm still buzzing and I still have that people just want an album from me now. Like, they heard the mixtapes, they know what you could do, they know you could spit, they know you can make songs. Where's the album? So it was like really on us to like, all right, let's focus on just making the best album we could. And back then the albums were important. It wasn't just about the singles where now you could just drop singles. Back then you had to make a dope album, like from start to finish. It was a very important thing in hip hop to make a dope album. So, I mean, we did have creative control. I mean, I think having a production deal back then gave us the creative control. The part that was, you had people that didn't really understand what was going on. And obviously, that's how labels work, fake stylists or people that want to create you and put you in something. They had gave me a stylist for a photo shoot, and like, they were like, it was like this young Italian or like white girl from like Long Island, and she was trying to like make me look like NSYNC or somebody. Like, when are you gonna grow your hair out? Or like, what are you gonna? All right, we're gonna put you in this leather suit, and I snapped, and I threw off the trailer, and I made her cry and everything. And I went back to Universal, and they were like, why'd you do that? I said, yo, I don't need that. You're gonna pay a stylist, just give me the money. So it's like, I think you deal with that stuff, and I'm the type where like I'm never gonna change. It might have been the reason why, I wasn't in the game for a long time, is because I'm gonna be me. And if you can't deal with me, listen, I created myself, right? So why am I gonna change? For what? I already created myself, and people love who I am by being me. So what am I gonna listen to you? So I could, I just, that part of the music business. And in life, with anything, I don't listen to nobody. If we're doing business, you got to understand who I am, and I'm going to understand and respect who you are. And that's it. But you're not going to change who I am. The be yourself thing is a very important thing to me. Like, I'm never going to fake who I am. And I think anybody in the game can never say anything about me that way, whether it's somebody at a label, a producer, an artist, manager. I think my name, stands there with just being Genovese at any point of my career.
A very powerful wisdom right there, brother. And that's a powerful piece, what you just said, man. I love that. Wow, man. So all right. So you're at Universal, and you're standing on your ground. You don't want to be changed. They're trying to change you a little bit. Where does it go from here? I mean, 99 is also when like Eminem's coming out and that whole craze. Are you immediately being compared to him by default because of skin color?
I think in the magazines, I mean, I have a magazine. I did a bunch of articles in the Source and stuff, but one of them was for something that I thought was for me. And when it came out, it was called Caucasian Invasion. And I had this big picture of me, and then everybody was on the side. They had like, who was it? It was M, and then they had, I think there was Haystacks or some other kid. There was a bunch of white artists that that were kind of coming out off of kind of what I was doing. And they made this whole thing, like the Caucasian Invasion, the white rapper thing. And it became, I think when Eminem came out, that's what it was. Because, Eminem hit America, you know what I mean? So it was like Eminem wasn't just a rapper like when he first originally came out, more of like a backpack, spitting bars, battling. He became this American sensation. So I think that created the white rapper thing. But for me, I don't personally know that because Eminem was coming up that my shit got fucked up. I personally think that my name had a lot to do with it. I do think some years later, I found out a lot of artists didn't want me to come out. Whether it was an intimidation factor or they just like, I rubbed someone the wrong way. You got to understand, I had a song called Fuck Y'all that was like, I kind of dissed Jay-Z in it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And the fact was that I had a song called My America, and they took the beat and they kind of were talking shit sounded like they were talking shit about me, The Rock, So wow. I did a song called Fuck Y'all, and I said, listen, it's music, right? It's a sport. It's not.
Yeah.
I don't, I met Jay a few times, and he was a good guy. You know what I'm saying? He even told Dave and Dash to sign me at some point. We were all hanging out and talking. So like, I didn't have any issues. I'm just like, yo, if you're gonna come at me, I'm nice enough to come at you. So
100%.
But I did find out later that there was a lot of calls into Universal to not really like let me come out, because no one ever seen someone spend all that money and shoot $100,000 videos, magazines, and then all of a sudden just drop you. I didn't do anything for that to happen. So it kind of was a thing where I had to do a lot of research, a lot of like digging into people to kind of get a few ideas of what really happened. But
so let's frame that one, because that's actually one of my questions. So you had a beat that was going to come out, was your single called My America, and that beat was remade by another producer and given to Jay-Z? Is that what happened?
So yeah, my boy Jay Blend did a beat. It was a title track to the album. The album was My America. It was the title track. It wasn't a single. It was just like an album cut. And K Slade played it, the joint originally. So months later, Rockefeller and them, they did a joint, the rock, and they took the same beat, they flipped it a little, but it was the same sample, the same beat, and they were like, "We're the real murderers," like why? And I was like, and listen,
Ooh.
maybe they weren't even talking to me, but the way a competitive Genovese is
Yeah.
like, you took my beat and you're kind of like spitting some like mob or like hard gangster shit. And I'm like, all right, well, so I did a song called Fuck Yo, but that song was supposed to be for the album. K Slade loved it so much, he just played it. You know what I'm saying? So that's when it kind of got where people were like, oh shit, like, what
Same
is this?
sample. So now there's two different records out, two different producers, same sample.
And obviously their record was
Yeah, it's
bigger because
corrupt.
it you got Hove and you got all the, you know what I'm saying? Mine was just
Yeah.
an album cut. It was just on a K Slade mixtape. So, listen, there's a lot of it was a weird time in terms of that. But years later, you find things that you didn't know back then about what happened, and but you have somebody like Jay-Z or somebody who's big in the game that, like I said, I'm not saying Jay-Z was the reason why something happened, but when you have people in powerful places, they can make a call and things change. You know what I mean? So
Right, right. There's another thing that you told me about years ago. So you were asked to be from Biggie to be in the commission.
so I met Big through the Locks. Actually, Jadakiss introduced me to Big, and I remember we were all drinking and shit one night in Daddy's house in the studio, and Big was like looking at me. Biggie had a side eye, like one of his eyes kind of went the other way.
Yeah.
So you kind of didn't know if he was really looking at you or he wasn't. And he was like, he was like asking me, he's like, yo, that's your real name? I was like, yeah. He goes, that's your real last name? I said, yeah. He's like, man, you gonna blow, Duke. He's like, that's crazy. So like, we talked and shit, and then, when we were leaving, he's like, yo, I'm redoing the Junior Mafia. I'm kind of gonna turn it. He didn't say commission, but he was like, I'm kind of like working on a different side of Junior Mafia. And he's like, yo, I would love to talk to you, in the next few months. And I was like, oh shit. I remember going to Rough Riders and D, and I was like, yo, Biggie wants to fuck with me. And he was like, yo, chill, V's, like, chill, we got you. He's probably like worrying if I'm gonna go with Big. But like, I mean, that happened. And then 2 months later, Big was gone. So
Wow.
I never got to meet with him on the business side of it. But yeah, man, what a good guy. Like, like I'm not gonna sit here and say I was like best friends with him, but the 2, 3 times that I hung out in the studio with him, um, you could just tell how genuine he was and what a good heart he was, and obviously an insane talent. But yeah, that was a wild time because I always think in my mind, what would have happened? What could have happened? Because you imagine at that time, Junior Mafia was so
Yeah.
high in the game. Like, just think of like a Genovese and the Junior Mafia with
That's
I
crazy.
mean,
That's
that's just crazy. It's
crazy.
almost like it was almost too incredible to even happen.
And it's nuts because you could, like, it's like you have that where you could spit with the Locks, but I could also see that, like, what it was molding into the Junior Mafia. Biggie's second album had like this like gangster class to it. You
Yep.
could ride that too,
Yep.
and so speaking. So all right, so now Universal. There's no real reason why you were let go. They just gave you a pink slip. Like, what? How do they go? Hey, Beast, we're done with you. Like, how do they?
So
How did Universal tell you that you're
my
off?
album was coming out January 30th, 2000, and 2001 actually. The crazy thing is, I was in all the magazines. I mean, they had my album release date. I did radio promo tours, shot the video. We did everything you would want to do for the setup of the album. And then as it got like closer to the end of the year, where like, in September, October, you're starting to feel like, where's the engine? Like, what's going on? Why am I doing radio promo and then why is it stopping? Why am I not, why I wanted certain features on the album, they wouldn't do it. I had a chance to have DMX on the album, they didn't want to pay him. You know, And then the whole thing with Nelly, obviously Nelly's blowing up. Why is he not on the album? Why can't you find a song? It's too many things. I was supposed to be on the soundtrack for one of the Cash Money movies that they did, and all of a sudden I was off that. So you're starting to get this feeling like, yo, something ain't right. Like what are they doing? But they're not telling me, but I'm just seeing what's going on. And
Wow.
then we were like on Christmas vacation and shit. It's like I was in Florida with my cousins and my uncle, and I got a call from Dino, and he's like, yo, I got to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, yeah, definitely. I'm just with family. He's like, no, I got to talk to you. And he was just like, yo, they're going to let you go. And I'm like, what do you mean? The album's coming out in like 30 days. What do you mean let you go? How? Like, for what? He's like, nah, I can't. I don't know. They didn't really give me an answer on it. And it just was that, and even when I sat and talked to Dino, he didn't really have a logical answer. You know what I mean? So
Right.
Obviously in business, sometimes there's not an answer. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Bro,
it should,
honestly, 30 days out, something,
bro, that's
something
unheard
happened,
of.
bro.
Bro, that's
Something
unheard
happened.
of.
There's no question about it. There's no question about something. If they're all lined, if they have a projection to come out of it, just think about it from a business aspect. Why would they stop? Something was said, and it probably is puzzling even to this day for you, man.
No, it is.
Said.
Listen, it took a long time to be at ease with that, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when I was 20 years old, my goal was to have a record deal at 25. I ended up getting a record deal at 24. So it's like I reached my goal at such a young age that even though even though the career side of it, the money side of it didn't happen in terms of that, I still did something that most couldn't do, right? I still created something. So in my mind, as I got older, after I got over the fact of what happened, I thought everything was easy because I already did it at a young age. So anything I do post that, why can't I do? Who's going to tell me I can't do it? Do you know how many people said you'll never get a deal? You never do this. What are you doing? What do you do? It's like, so I already won, so maybe maybe that wasn't for me, the business. Maybe something would have happened to me. People I was around, I wasn't around the best people. So I always think God has a plan for you. And sometimes he shuts down things that you really want just for you to be safe on the other side.
I mean, and authenticity, right, bro? I'll tell you this, man. When we closed the Cuckoo's Nest, I was engineering certain artists or whatever, and I'm like, I feel like I'm feeding just a dark thing, bro. This is the best way I explained it at that time. I didn't give my life to Christ yet, and nothing like that. But there was just this system, right? We know about the labels and the system, and it's like we were feeding a business that may not be for the best interest for authentic people. If we have to fake it till we make it, or if we have to make a certain type of music in order to get to the label, or let's be honest, bro. I mean, a lot of artists. I produce for a lot of artists. We've seen some of the best artists ever that Ali Vegas, perfect example, bro. Ali Vegas. I don't know anybody that he doesn't even write. The guy that he freestyles, and you could tell that there's some force that keeps an artist like that out.
How could Ali Vegas not be one of the illest? How do you not give a kid who's good looking kid, great heart, talented? I could go on and on. I listen. We've spent hours and hours and maybe hundreds of hours with Ali Vegas in the studio, right? I haven't really seen many artists come up with shit like him. Like he's a superior talent, and like you said, the game ain't. There's a reason for why certain people don't make it, and I don't know what the reason, but I know the game is a fucked up game, and that's why I escaped from the game is because of the people. It's not the game. I love the game. I still do it. I still do it, but the people in it. And let's be real, whether it's producers, artists, engineers, label, a lot of people are not the people that I want to be near. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm talking about.
And the intimidation factor too, when you're yourself, and I don't listen, you make a hot song, I don't want to make a song like you. You dress like this, I don't want to dress like you. You know what I'm saying? You hang out with these guys. I don't care who you hang out. I don't. You think I'm gonna be excited? When I met Puff, you think I was like excited? Like I was like, wow. I was watching his work ethic more than anything. I wasn't excited to be around a rapper though. Anytime I walked into a place, I never felt I'm like, wow, I met this guy. In my mind, I'm like, if I get in a verse with him, I'm going to eat him. That's how my
Right.
thought process was. So it's the same way where, like, if I sat with an executive, what are you going to tell me? Can you help my career? Can you make sense? It's the same thing like with the world now, right? It's not about left, right, politics, blue, red. You know what it's about? Make sense,
Right.
right? Like have common sense, have respect, and make sense. And then we can talk. And I think just being in the music business, you get jaded in the music business because of all the assholes and of course, from all the people that are just, it's just such an ignorant business. And then when you escape it and you go into other forms of business, you're like, yo,
Yep.
this is life. I've been in this business this whole time. So it's like it
Yep.
takes a while for you to realize like what real business and what real people are.
And bro, and for those watching right now, people would say, "Oh, they like you said the word jaded and stuff." It's not even about jaded, guys. I had Sean Strange on. We had a great episode, and there's I remember back in the day that there were these Bloods versus Crips mixtapes that was being sold at Sam Goody. They were tapes, bro. They weren't even artists that were known. Like obviously we have artists that are gang affiliated, but these were just artists on the West Coast
Yeah.
that were being put and Sam Goody grabbed it. And my point is that these labels were purposely trying to farm certain topics, certain destructive behavior, guys. For the viewers watching, Vise is talking about authenticity. He's talking about just being good at his pen, being the best artist he could be. And the majors, in my opinion, were looking and farming for destruction. Why would you put a project like that out? We're talking 95, bro. We have this conscious hip hop rap that's out. That's great. The Lord Jamal, Public Enemy, all that stuff that I love. I was a little young when that came out. But then there was this other wave that the labels were pushing, brother, in your time. You probably remember this. And it was destructive music on purpose. These artists that were in the Sam Goody, they didn't even have a name in the game. They weren't known artists. They weren't on these mixtapes that you were on and Biggie was on and the Locks were on. The labels were purposely pushing this stuff. And I think Chuck D did a great service to hip hop by pointing that out in the courts. Do you see that wave? Did you see that wave of purposely putting out destructive music in hip hop?
Yeah, that's where the ignorant side comes in, and they feed off that. Just like when an artist dies, they'll do anything to put an album right out or just promote them even more than they did when they were alive. It's a money machine, and the people that, like Dame says, the culture vultures. I believe in that, bro. They're not about the culture. They're just about how much money they can make, and they don't care what happens or what effect it happens on the artist as long as they're making money, and it's a sick thing. I mean, it really is. I mean, like I said, during that time when I was in my 20s, you don't see this stuff. You don't, even if you do see it, your brain is not processing as a full grown adult yet to where you could understand what's really happening,
100%.
and I think like what you're saying is very true. But yeah, I listen, I've seen it just how I've seen it just how they want to change you,
Right.
so you're the organic artist is the artist that, like you said, the tribes and the guys that came up that were just being themselves, right?
Yeah.
But then as you got to a certain point in rap, it's like you had to be this person that the labels wanted that. I don't even know if every artist wanted to be that way, but guess what? That's where the following comes, and that's where everybody was trying to follow what someone else did instead of just trying to be themselves. You look like an artist like J. Cole. J. Cole is himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't need all that. He'll walk around in sweatpants and shoot hoops, and he's not afraid to do a video on the back of the bus or like just spit. But like he's an artist and he's never gonna change. And look what happened. He don't need anybody.
Right. Right. So yeah, he perseveres, and that's a great point, man. Yeah, bro. I think we see certain artists that kind of push the don't follow trends, right? Never follow trends. Don't follow trends and push through. And I think that's the importance of the alpha males and importance in hip hop, because we have to go against that grain, like what you're talking about is artists that are not going to follow what the labels are telling you, because essentially it's a grooming factory, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I need you, like you said, they wanted to dress you up like NSYNC, and you're like, you signed me because of who I am, and now you're turning me into someone that I'm not. And at that point, right, it's probably that crossroad where we always hear about, like, we don't hear these rumors, but when you make that decision to go, I'm not going to be myself anymore, and I'm going to become a puppet and do what they say for money, I think you do lose a part of yourself, man. And we said on the phone privately, I'd rather, be authentic, know who I am, and not be a slave, not even just to a 9 to 5, but even be a slave to being a multimillionaire that I'm not myself, and I'm portraying a character. I'm a wrestler.
Well, Fuzz, let's be real. A lot of people are not built like that, and a lot of people, people chase the money and chase the clout, and I never really was. I was always happy more, hanging with my family or hanging with a few close friends than, being in clubs or be just, trying to be, known. It was more like I thought of music as a way out where I could be independently successful and run my own business. I didn't think of it as where I wanted to be known. I wanted someone to see me with this car, or this chain, or this. That wasn't my thought process, but I think 90% of the artists think that way, So by you being different, sometimes is the downfall for you. But when you know who you are and you never change, I always say in music, like people, like for me, a lot of people that hit me up when I drop new music, even now, they always say, yo, thanks, V's, for like never changing, for always spitting, the same way you did when you're 20s to in your 40s. You kept your same feeling. And that's important because as an artist, when you change from what your fans know you as, you're done. That's when it
Right.
ends.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of that, last question. You have new music coming out. Where can they find Genovese's music? What are your handles? How can people get in contact with you, brother?
Yeah, Instagram is the real Genovese. Same thing on Spotify. Definitely have a few joints recently. I have some Lost Files albums that I had from back in the days, like songs that never came out. But yeah, I'm working on a project with this kid Rojavelli, talented producer, 90s sound, crazy like that, just that soulful vibe. Probably gonna release it in April. But yeah, it'll be on all platforms. And it's a dope album, bro. It's like it's family, it's streets, life. But it has that 90s sound, and definitely looking forward to dropping that definitely soon, a few months.
Vise, I want to thank you for coming on, man. You've been a brother and a mentor to me. You've taught me a lot. When we first met, you were very tough with me. You wanted to make sure that and once you started to see I was getting some type of momentum in the game, you gave me my flowers, and I appreciated that. You've been a good older brother to me in the game, and I just wanted to say that personally and publicly to you, brother. And thank you for all the contributions to hip hop. For my childhood, like I said in the beginning. When I was cutting schools and listening to mixtapes, I remember hearing you, and it inspired me to want to do music. So I just want to say thank you for everything you've contributed, brother.
I appreciate that. Like I said, when I first met you, I knew you had talent. I knew you were young, and your mind was all over the place. But I knew you were a good-hearted dude, and that's like for me. I'm a good judge of a character, and I always knew you were a good dude and you had talent. So I'm happy to see that you're doing your thing, and it makes me feel good.
My brother, bro. Thanks for coming on. Episode 30 with Genovese, and we're out.